Hi Year 2. Well, welcome back to our fourth 3D art lesson. Today, I want you first of all just to have a look back at the beautiful flowers that you made last week. Say an enormous well done to everybody who tried this. It wasn't easy, it was tricky, wasn't it? But we used our recycled bottles and we used our candles and we made some incredible flowers. So well done if you tried that tricky job at home or at school. I loved seeing some of your work that was sent to me on email, but I would love to see even more. So if you made some of these flowers at home, please send them to me on the email address, which is at the start and the end of this video. It is art@wisdestonacademytrust.co.uk. I would love to share your work in the newsletter and in one of these videos. First of all, I want to say an amazing well done in particular to Lynette. Her work from last week, she made 2 flowers out of her bottle and she has made a spindly one like I did and also a little curly one like the one next to it. Fantastic work, Lynette. So today we are going to see what else we can do to our flowers. You're going to need some materials today. You will need acrylic paint. That is definitely the best paint for this job today. If you don't have acrylic, you could use tester pots of emulsion paint for the walls. You could try it with poster paint, but I think it might be a little bit thin for what we want to do. You could even be incredibly brave and use spray paint if mums and dads are willing to help with that. Obviously, you would need a face mask to protect yourself from the spray paint. You'd probably need to do that one outside because it's very messy. But we are going to use acrylic paint, which is very easy to buy from Home Bargains, The Works, Hobbycraft, the supermarket, anything like that. Obviously, most shops are online at the moment, but that is Home Bargains in particular is a great place to get acrylic paint and the brushes that you can see that we need. We also need buttons today if possible. And if you don't have a pot of spare buttons at home, then they can easily be bought for £1 in Home Bargains, along with pipe cleaners that we also need. Added extras, if you had thin florist wire, you could use that. If you don't have pipe cleaners, you could also use gardening wire. And if you have any beads, you can use them today, but they are not essential. So our first job is to add colour to our flowers by painting. Now let's have a look at how that is done. Okay, so now that we've done our first coat on our flowers, we're going to think now about the middles of our flowers. Now I want us to imagine some exotic flowers from the Emperor's Garden. I think if I could imagine an exotic flower like that, it might have something poking out of the middle, some things called stamen. The middle parts that stick out of a flower, called stamen, often hold out the pollen for the bees to come along and collect and take off to another flower to pollinate. So we could think about some sticking out bits for our flowers. And we also need to think about a coloured piece in the middle, which is also like the centre part where the pollen might go as well. Okay, let's have a look at how we can make it. Okay, so while we're waiting for our flower paint to dry, we've got another job to do, and that involves pipe cleaners or florist wire or gardening wire, and hopefully some buttons. Now I got these buttons, a full packet, it was just £1 from Home Bargains, and I know you can get them from other places easily, like supermarkets. So hopefully you can get hold of some of these, because these will be really useful for the next bit. And if you have any beads, maybe an old necklace that broke, or just any craft beads that you have access to, they might come in handy as well. So what we need to do first of all is pick a big button. That one needs to be the base of the middle of our flower. So with our big button, we need to get our pipe cleaner, fold our pipe cleaner in half so we can find where the middle is. Then from the bottom of our button, we need to poke the pipe cleaner through the bottom and pull it up so that it is sticking out the top of the button. This will be the stamen of our flower. Now, we are also going to make a piece of wire that will stick out the back of the flower to help us attach our flower to something else next week. So if we get another pipe cleaner, bend it in half. This time we're going to go in the opposite direction. So I'm going to go through what we said was the top and pull it out the bottom this time. So I'm going down the same holes, but because the wire in the middle of the pipe cleaner is so thin, it will, even though it looks like it's too fat to go through the same hole, it will go through. So I'm going to poke it through. That's the first one coming out the back, and then another one through the front and out the back. So I'm going to pull that down. So now I've got wires sticking out the front and the back of my button. So I'm going to decide that this part is the back, this part is the front. Now, just to add a bit of extra colour, I want to get another button that is a bit smaller than the one I started with, and I'm going to thread that one over the top as well, so that the middle of my flower looks like it's got two colours in it. So I push it down as far as I can go, and hopefully you can see there's two colours there. Now, just to make sure that doesn't fall off, I'm going to get the two middles, the two stamen in the middle of my flower, and I'm going to twist them. Twist, 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 pinching it nice and tight and twisting at the same time, twisting the buttons, and that means it's got a little twist here which will keep it on. So I've got my two buttons and I've got my stamen. If you imagine that in the middle of a flower. Now, just for the top of our stamen, we could just curl it up if we want to make it look pretty, make it look like the middle of an exotic flower. We could wiggle them if we want to make them look a bit interesting. Or we could get a small button. If I get a tiny one out of the pack, if I thread my pipe cleaner through one of those holes and pull it out a bit, then if I bend it over, I can thread it back down through another hole in my pipe cleaner, in my button, sorry. And then, just to make sure that doesn't fall off, I can hold the button and twist, 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 until that is securely on. Now you could leave it like that, because on the end of some stamen in the middle of flowers, they have a little bubble on the end, don't they, like a lily or something, which has all the pollen on. So you could leave it like that, or if you want to, you could bend it however you like. So you could curl it up, again a bit like the other side, so you could have a a button on one end or a button on both ends, and you can alter the shape of your stamen however you want it to be. I quite like the idea of one being slightly longer than the other, and I like having different colours in the middle. Now this long piece here is going to thread through our flower later on next week when it's all completely dry. I'll just show you what I mean. This flower it's only had one coat of paint, so there's work that needs to be done next week when this has dried. We need to do another coat of paint. But if you can imagine this pipe cleaner being thread through the two holes that we made with our soldering iron or our nail and pulling it out, then this would be in the middle, down deep in the middle, and that would be the middle of our flower. Now, of course, if this is all too complicated and puts you off, then you can do it a different way. You could, when your flower is dry, you could simply stick a button in the middle to make it look like the middle, and maybe stick a smaller one on top so that you have a variation of colour and not bother with the wire and the stamens. That would be fine. So, like I said, while these are drying, we've got time to make our stamens and our middles. But we can't do another coat of paint on our flower yet. We need to let it dry first. So putting it all together and doing our last coat of paint will be next week's job. Have fun and show me how you get on up till now. Right, now that we've painted our flower and we've made our middles of our flowers, our stamens, we need to let our flower dry, and next week we're going to do some more work on it, because I want you to think, this is my flower from this week, or one of them, and next to it are some pictures of some other ideal flowers that we would like to make ours a bit like. And I want you to think, what's the difference between my flower and the better flowers next to it? What can I do to improve my flower to make it more like the second picture? Tell the person next to you. Well, if I look at my flower, I think it looks quite nice. I've got a few different colours on it, but there's something not quite finished looking about it. I think maybe it looks a bit patchy because I only did one coat of the paint. I couldn't do another coat yet because before it dries, if I keep painting, I just keep taking the paint away. I think I need to let it dry. And then if I give it another coat next week in our art lesson, then it will look more opaque, more filled in, like those flowers in the other picture. At the moment, it's a little bit patchy and translucent, and I want to make it opaque so that you can see a lovely solid colour. So next week, that is going to be our task. We're going to do a second coat to our flowers. We're going to attach our stamen, and we're even going to do something to our birds from a few weeks ago. Now, there are some things that you could possibly gather this week to help us with next week's lesson. So this is your challenge. If you're going for a walk with mum or dad or whoever's looking after you next week, then we could have a bit of a foraging challenge. That means we're going to find some things. So if you go for a walk in a wood, for example, that would be an ideal place to find these things. Now, you don't have to have these things, but if we could find an interesting stick, that would really help us next week. Now, when I say interesting, in my mind, I've got a picture of a stick that is not too thin, quite thick. I think it would be more interesting if it was a bit wiggly and had a few knobbles on it. So if you can find a wibbly wobbly, kind of chunky fat stick, that would be really useful. Also, if you're walking in the wood and you happen to find any pine cones or kind of nut-like things from a tree, that could be really useful for what we're going to do. We could even use a stone or a rock if you found an interesting one, and maybe some nice leaves. The rock and the leaves are definitely added extras, and the cone is too. And in fact, we can do all of these things without, we can do our lesson without any of these things. But if you are able to find them, it might be fun to pick them up on your walk. So show me what you find by email and show me your artwork.